Welcome to Purpose 360. And today I have one of my favorite guests, Martin Whittaker. He's the CEO of Just Capital. He is such a joy to know and to collaborate with. Just Capital is doing amazing work in terms of helping to inspire companies to be more just. And so welcome back to the show, Martin. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that's AI.
Thank you, Carol. I know you say that about all your guests.
No.
They're all equally favorite. So I'm just grateful to be here.
Well, thank you very much. First, for those of our few listeners, I know that we reached over 100,000 downloads in the last few years. If they don't know you, they should. And anybody I meet, I always say you must analyze Just Capital, listen to their podcast, look at their research. It's great. Can you just at a high level explain who Just Capital is and what's the company's purpose, your organization's purpose?
Sure. We're a New York-based 501c3 nonprofit. Our big mission is really to try and get big corporations, the private sector, to do more on big societal challenges. We feel as though without really the markets and private sector leaning in to create a more just future for everybody, government and philanthropy can't really get the job done by themselves. So you need markets to do that, and companies have a lot of incentives to do that because being just, being excellent at stakeholder performance is tied completely to market performance, competitive performance, and ultimately financial success.
Yeah, and I love the way. Can you talk about how you describe justness from the surveys you have done with the American public?
Exactly. So we don't define what just means. We don't define what issues matter. We put our faith in the American people. So we do, and we always have, this is going back 11 years now, extensive survey and public opinion research to really take the pulse of Main Street America, Carol, on a fully representative basis, to ask them, what do they think about corporate America? How do they define this idea of a just company? What issues matter? And I go back to when we were founded, and people would say, "Well, why would you do that?" The public can't agree on anything, and they don't really know anything, and they're not up to speed on the issues. It was so untrue, and it's proven to be untrue. And actually, our survey work, which I would encourage anybody to reach out and dig into, it's all on our website. We're very transparent. Our survey work would say actually Americans are pretty much united on what they expect of corporate America, how they define just, what the issues are, and what they want companies to do. And I see us as kind of like a beacon for really championing, the best of American business. That's how I think about it.
And I know there's a big focus on employees. And
well, there is because those are the issues that rise to the top in the survey work.
Right. And that thrills me because for over, I think, 25 years now, I've always talked about the number one stakeholder for any organization is your employees, because they are your economic engine. They are your heart and your soul. So that's why from the very beginning, when I saw your research, I was like, I got to get to know this guy and invite him into our family and our community. So thank you very much. Today, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and its responsible use. And I don't think there's any better organization really in the country or the world to talk about its responsible use. But let's just start with the definition. You may or may not agree with it, so we'll talk about that, of what responsible AI is. Responsible AI is a set of principles, standards, and practices for delivering and deploying artificial intelligence systems that are fair, transparent, accountable, reliable, safe, and secure, really important to be secure, while also respecting privacy and being inclusive. Responsible AI aims to ensure AI systems are designed and used to maximize benefits for humanity. And I love that humanity is in this definition, and society, while minimizing potential harms or risks. So that's a long description, and we can put it in the show notes, which we will. But overall, remember, systems are designed and used to maximize benefits for humanity and society while minimizing potential harms or risks. Reliable, safe, transparent, accountable. Do you agree with this, or do you have a modification of this?
I agree with the thrust of that definition and a lot of those words. I'll point out a few things though. Just I'm hearing that for the first time, obviously. So some of those words are subjective.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by fair? Fair to whom?
Mm-hmm.
What does inclusive mean? Include like that depends on your point of view. Everybody? Is that some people? Like some of those terms, just in our experience at Just Capital, because we've dealt with language,
A lot of language.
a
Yeah.
lot when
Mhm.
it comes to issues. So I think there's some room for interpretation on some of those things.
Mhm.
Second set of observations is, so how do you actually do that? Whose
Right.
responsibility is
Mhm.
it to advance that? Is that a government? Does government decide what's in the best interest of, what did you say, humanity and
And
society?
society.
Well,
Right.
who decides that?
Right.
Who gets to decide? How do you? So I think how you get to that, how you go in that direction, I think, is an issue. I'll give you this. This issue, in one sense, reminds me a little bit of climate change, insofar as it's a big issue that affects everybody. People have very different points of view on its severity, its urgency,
Mhm.
how it's going to affect them individually, and what to do about it. Is it government's responsibility, or is it the private sector, or is it someone else, or is it So, there's a lot of there's a lot of sort of lessons learned from that for me, which we can go into if you want. But I think a lot of the definitional elements that you just described show up in the survey work that we've done and that
Right.
we're
Okay.
we're about to do. I'll talk about that. They show up in other surveys where you see a lot of fear, a lot of concern about social stability,
Mhm.
safety,
Mm.
security. We're going to repeat the mistakes we've made with basically unfettered social media use, where regulation was non-existent or very light. A lot of detrimental impacts. There's a lot of examples of the well-intended
Mhm.
sort of the good intentions to try
Right.
and create that, but like, how do you actually do it, and what do those things really mean at the end of the day?
Great. Okay. So we will then let's now pivot to the early measure of just AI. And I was thrilled when I saw this in my news feed from you that you had a summer intern, Sophia Maria Giorgiani. And we also have, we call our interns fellows, and that I know that you put them on real projects that are going to benefit them and the organization. So she worked on this summer. And why was that one of the 4 key topics for Just Capital this year? And why is it critical to publish it?
It's one of the 4 key topics because it's probably the overwhelming issue that we're grappling with right now.
Okay.
What does just AI deployment, development, what does it even mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an issue that is just coming at us, barreling towards us at 100 miles an hour. Every day there's a new report or survey that would describe kind of the impacts, the risks, but also the opportunities. There's a lot happening, and we at Just Capital decided we got to get our arms around this. This is going to affect the role of corporations in society. It's going to affect how people think about what even is a just a just society and a just company. So it affects everything, Carol. So that's been a sort of a recognition that we've had over the last 12 months. And we're tackling it in lots of different ways. And this is one of them.
Right.
One of the things, at the top of the show, I said, we take our cues from the public.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to be doing a lot of survey work on how different stakeholders think about responsible AI. And I'll talk about that in a second. But one of the other pieces of the puzzle for Just Capital is, what are companies actually doing?
Right.
What are they disclosing? So this project was, all right, let's put a marker down.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have Sophia focus on disclosure. This mirrors what we've done with other issues, living wage back in the 2016, 17 era. We did it with COVID. What are companies actually disclosing?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll start to look at, okay, how does that match up with other things they're doing? How does that match up with their overall performance and the just indices and the just 100? And does disclosure mean they're actually doing something? What are they actually doing? So this is the first step in that direction. And Sophia did some great work. All the interns did. We should call them fellows, though, by the way.
I took that from someone else, so you can take it from me.
Okay, thank you. So all of them did phenomenal work on very important issues. And, this helps us just get a handle on across the Russell 1000 is our universe.
Yes.
What's the current state of disclosure?
Mm-hmm.
What types of disclosures are happening?
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to build on that with, methodological improvements.
Great.
Right now, we're working on an upgrade of our model at the moment.
That's what I was going to ask. With the Just 100, will it be a part of the entry that an organization? Well, you'll analyze they don't enter. You review information in the marketplace. Let me get that right. They don't enter, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. They don't enter. We select. We choose to analyze companies in the Russell 1000. That's our base universe,
based on the knowledge in the marketplace.
And we're gonna expand that. We're developing a toolkit that any company can use, not just ones that we track.
Great.
So, but anyway, that's our coverage universe, and this issue is going to transcend everything we measure. It's going to affect product safety. It's going to affect workforce issues, compensation issues. It's going to affect training, which we can talk about. It's going to affect customer experience, safety. You name it.
Right.
There's some element of AI. So we got to get our hands around that, and we will.
Okay.
So it's not going away. We're going to have a lot more podcasts like this where we talk about what AI means to our worldview. That's
terrific. So I want to turn it to you personally. How have you started to embrace using AI in not your personal life, that's your personal life, but in your work life?
I'm glad you asked that, because I do think it is one of the most, we were talking about what are the steps companies can take, company leaders and boards can take. And my own experience, the first thing you got to do is start becoming a user yourself.
Right.
You use it every day. And, I got a note one day from our former chairman who said, the most important thing you're going to do is listen to this podcast. And it was a podcast about, I think it was Ethan Mollick from Penn talking about AI in the workplace. And he was asked the question, what's the one thing you would advise a CEO to do right now? And this is a few months old at this point. And he said, you got to start using it yourself, and you got to develop a game plan for yourself. So that's what I did. I developed a game plan. I had my team put together like a cheat sheet for like courses I got to take evenings and weekends. So that is my personal life right now.
Right.
I got to like take these courses. I got to get familiar with all the different approaches, the different applications, the different apps, different uses. I got to figure out how it works for me on a day-to-day basis. And I got to go on a journey. And I did that. And I'm still on that, obviously. But it's helped me become a lot more just discerning and realistic about what AI can and cannot do, what it really is, how it can help me with my day-to-day, but also what it means for our company and what it means for the companies that we track.
Right. Now, do you have responsible AI use principles for your company?
We're developing them. So
Mhm.
one of the first things I did was establish an AI user group within the firm and appoint someone to chair that, Molly Stutzman, if Molly's watching. And so we have a group of folks who are kind of coordinating that, sharing ideas, sharing new developments so they come across that are useful. We've just started, for example, to create a database of AI surveys, third-party AI surveys that are out there. Our head of survey work, Jennifer Tonti, created that, and it's tracking as close to real time as we can what other surveys are saying about AI, and we're using AI to
Yeah.
compile that and analyze it.
Great.
So that's one example, but we do that across the firm. So that's one thing. User group. We have a sort of a game plan that is both internal and also external as it relates to our strategy. How do we think about our strategic priorities on this issue? We have an external AI advisory council.
Nice.
Some superb people on that who can guide us, give us advice. So it's multi-layer, Carol, and yeah, I only think it's gonna be become more important and more universal, more ubiquitous in our day to day.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And just in all transparency, I have appointed one of our partners who is insanely curious and brilliant. So she's heading up our AI analysis journey, training for all of our people. I use it at least 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. But we also have to balance it. We're very transparent. We do have our principles. I'll share our principles with you if you'd like to have those. And actually, we can put them in our show notes because I think that everyone's learning from everyone else. But we always say that you've got to have the human review. You've got to make sure the content is correct because hallucinations still happen and you get some strange responses no matter what you're doing. So it's both technological as well as human.
You got to have human in the loop, as
Yep.
you say. What I'm learning really is that your company's values. At Just Capital, we have our stated norms and values. Everything that's our North Star. So that
Right.
guides
Yeah.
how we think about AI and everything else we do. Like, is this creating
Yeah.
an inclusive workplace? Are people feeling empowered? Is this helping us solve problems together?
Yeah.
Do we feel that we are trying to model just behavior in our use of AI?
Right.
So we're very careful about that. We're very careful about the tool that we're developing. You're totally right about hallucinations. We'll have a Just chatbot for broad public use at the beginning of the year. Next year, we're kind
I
of
can't wait.
looking at a whole bunch of different
I want to do
platforms
an
right now.
interview with your Just chatbot.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
let's do it. Maybe we'll do the three of us. That would be very interesting. That would be great. So super. So, I mean, everyone is along the journey. And so I'm glad that we're going to discuss this today. It sounds like you're really taking it to heart, and I'm going to have to even take more courses. And so we have a lot of courses that we looked at, and Coursera, some of them. So
Yeah.
I'd also just like to mention to our viewers and listeners that FICO just came out. You talk about a lot of research, and they just did a global survey of 254 C-suite AI and tech leaders. And it was interesting because it said, while it revealed that responsible AI is no longer a nice to have, responsible AI, not AI, but responsible. So that gave me a little heartfelt pitter patter. It is no longer a nice to have, it's a proven driver of business value. So and I feel like it's deja vu when I started doing purpose work and I kept saying, this is really powerful. This is going to help, grow the value of the organization. And people would look at me like I was a strange duck. So it's interesting to see this, but then they say scaling AI responsibility isn't easy. And they found from the research, and we'll put a link in our show notes, there's a 95% gap from misalignment of AI initiatives and business goals. A 95%. So, this insufficient collaboration between business and technology. And then if you're weak in AI literacy in the company, it's going to inhibit scaling. So, interesting piece of research saying that we all got to learn. It's like amazing. It's like all of us have to learn how to do it. So let's go back because I want to go back to what you have done with Sophia Marie. And what did you find out initially from studying AI this past summer?
Well, we found there was a significant disclosure level. So 84% of our universe, the Russell 1000, mention AI publicly on their website or in their financial reports. Only 20, we were very focused on internal talent development and training.
Right.
Only 20% disclose on that topic. So those disclosures right now I would characterize as being all over the place. There's no clear concentration of the nature of disclosure. It's sort of mentioned.
Yeah.
And what Sophia found was that there was this gap between general disclosure without any specificity, and only a smaller number, as I said, 20% of those companies were disclosing around workforce training initiatives, which is interesting because the most prevalent type of AI application in companies right now, I think, is on productivity, worker training, productivity-based issues. What I hear most from board members and from business leaders is what you just said in the FICO report, which is, that's great, but improving efficiency only gets you so far. By the way, that is why you're seeing, for the most part, a lot of companies lay people off, freeze hiring, not hire their usual, cohort,
Right.
entry-level interns or fellows, or whatever you call them. Like that's been sort of stifled now, and you see a lot of people being laid off, and a lot of quotes from CEOs saying, "I just don't need as many people," or "I don't need as many." Small team managers, I think Google said recently, Mark Benioff, I don't need that many people anymore to do those things. So there's a disruptive effect in the workforce. But that only takes you so far. What I'm hearing is, okay, what's the real business case? What
Right.
When are we going to see a return
Mm-hmm.
on our investments that is around growth, that is around smarter products, more sustainable competitive advantages that have been created and supported by AI. And the examples of those, unless you're the actual developers themselves, the Magnificent Seven and the amount of money they're putting in, but even there, investors still want to know there's going to be a return at the end of the day. I think that's the big question mark right now.
Okay. So you identified a group of companies that were, interestingly, in 13 different industries. So from Hershey to Visa to IBM, Salesforce. So what did you find that they were doing right, so to speak? What were their best practices that they really stood out from others?
Mostly it was around very specific and clear programs that were tied to their, let's say, their business or their natural competitive advantages.
Okay.
So IBM, for example, is one of the companies that we highlighted. Their What's an X challenge, is essentially leveraging their technology and data capabilities to advance kind of broader learning within their company, and also new revenue lines. And full disclosure, we have a relationship with IBM Watson now, where we're testing Watson X as and it's helping us with our own chatbot and our own modeling. But you see training applied in particular company circumstances. S&P Global stood out for that in their disclosures. We saw another example was Boston Scientific, which is in the report, their Gen AI Academy. Again, targeted training, targeted upskilling, targeted development and learning within a company on essential elements of their business. Dayforce also stood out. So the reports on our website, there's examples there. There are other examples that are provided. And, I would say companies are early on their journey, Carol.
Mhm.
And these are sort of initial examples of the first few baby steps companies are willing to kind of talk about.
Good. And do you have, besides the report, do you have any more informal cohorts that you have created with some of your just companies who are truly trying to expedite their learning?
We're developing that right now. We have a two-pronged initiative underway at the moment. The first is a major survey initiative to essentially poll the public as consumers and workers, to poll investors who we will be polling in partnership with Robinhood Foundation in October.
Nice.
A couple of thousand investors there, and then to survey corporate leaders with a sort of consistent set of questions around responsible AI. And that will tell us where there's areas of alignment and agreement, and where there's tension, where there's disagreement, or maybe even opposing interests and opposing forces. So that will give us a really good sense of like how different essential corporate stakeholders think about AI. And then the second part of our current strategy is to begin to track what companies are doing, and that speaks to Sophia's work and other work. The last thing on this was sort of, I'm very loath to rush to judgment, Carol, about what is just and what is unjust. I think it's tempting, but we don't want to make that mistake. Is a company laying people off just or unjust? We've actually asked that question several times before the public, and it may surprise you, but the answer was, well, it depends. Layoffs per se, by themselves, are not unjust. That's part and parcel of free market economy. How you do it can be more just or more unjust. So there is a playbook for a just layoff. And then you look at AI and you say, what's different about AI layoffs? While we're on that subject, are they any different? Should those laid off because of AI deployment by a company or adoption, should they be treated differently on the way out? Should they have some additional severance because they've been laid off due to AI and not some other issue? So these are really key questions.
It's an interesting question. You wonder if there's going to be this over indexing on layoffs in response to the new thing, AI, which is not a thing, it's our future. As the response to George Floyd and the entire response to DE&I and adding, significant DE&I ventures, and then, 3, 4, 5 years, and now that's downsizing. You wonder if I hope, because what you're saying is, and I love it, you're not a rush to judgment. You're saying, let's be careful, let's be considered. I mean, you have this incredible ecosystem of just capital companies and your advisors and such to truly give you pause. And it's fascinating that you have an AI advisory board even. But let's get to that later, but how you set that up.
Yeah, it is. And I think we want to move quickly. Don't get me wrong. We want to have a voice. That's why we're investing so heavily in the survey work in the fall. But that'll give us a clue, and I'm happy to share the results with you when we get them, Carol.
Yeah,
that will give us a strong sense how do company leaders and company stakeholders think about the role of government. How do they think about the role of empowerment? We talk about layoffs just because that was an example, but there's many examples of entrepreneurial opportunity, of new opportunities being created, of wonderful solutions being advanced in the workplace to take away the drudgery of some jobs and kind of elevate the human experience at work. And so what do they look like? And I think if we can begin to motivate the bigger companies, the Fortune 500 companies, to really lean in on those solution-oriented AI applications, what that will do is pulled through customers and users for all the new innovative AI applications, and we're tracking some of those as well.
Great.
So, like, that's where I think we'll start to see real excitement, where you begin to see applications of AI in ways that we probably can't even imagine right now, that are making companies across different industries way better, getting much more out of work, and that's going to create a whole new kind of frontier of economic growth.
Great. I'm curious, and I know that you said you're going to add an AI methodology analysis to the Just 100. Do you have any sense now of what that might look like? And will it supplant? I'm listening to AI and I'm going like, well, gee, will a company's investments in social impact and the environment lessen as they advance their AI investments? And then does that change in the Just 100?
Yeah. So when COVID hit, we began to ask ourselves the equivalent questions. What does this really mean? And what does a just company response look like? We began initially with a series of surveys to try and get a sense of how the public and how different stakeholders would answer those questions. So that's what we'll do here as well. We began to just track what companies were doing without judging.
Right. Good.
That's what we'll do here as well. We have our 5 stakeholder model, as you know. So that's workforce or employees,
Yeah.
customers, communities where companies operate, including their supply chains overseas, the environment, and then their shareholders and their governance structures. So you can add the corporation itself as a 6th stakeholder, but that's our model. And then our first sort of framework question is, what does unjust and just behavior look like across each of those stakeholders when it comes to how a company is using or deploying AI? So first, it comes with the judgments around what the stakeholders think about those things. Then comes the tracking of the companies, which we'll do very, very transparently. And then comes the judgment around, okay, what does just AI behavior look like when it comes to a company's relationships with its workforce, with its customers? I imagine things like, a lot of things we see every year, things like data privacy, customers very focused on that, very focused on transparency, very focused on ethical leadership, very focused on compensation and pay. So, these are the fundamental questions. I don't think those are going to change.
Okay.
If you take our number one issue from last year, which is really around fair pay, what does fair pay mean in an AI world? That's a really interesting question. Does that mean I'm getting paid the same as my peers? Does that mean I feel like a certain group of people are getting disproportionately rewarded? It leads us to ask really interesting questions, which I did in my newsletter this week, of, is there any obligation for companies that experience tremendous increase in market value,
Right.
laying people off? Do they have any obligation to those folks who've been laid off, or to society at large? If not, we might see increasingly concentrated levels of wealth inequality. So that doesn't go well with a country where, if some predictions are true, you're seeing 10, 15% unemployment. So, these are really critical questions that we got to get a handle on.
Absolutely. So towards that end, what role does the board play in terms of asking these questions? First, they got to ask them. Then they have to have knowledge around them. So do they bring in experts such as yourself or others? But what's the role of the board, and what are you hearing from your members?
Yeah, what I'm hearing is the role of the board. Look, the role of a board of any company is really around, protecting the long-term best interests of the company and shareholders, and making sure that all of its stakeholders, as the Business Roundtable's definition defines, that a company's long-term interests are protected across all those different stakeholder groups. So it's really about governance and setting the right course and ensuring the company is on that right course. Those are perennial board priorities. How they adapt and evolve to changing, situations on the ground, to changing technological advances, and in particular now we're talking about AI. How those things evolve in terms of how they're managed, what information a company's directors need, what sort of benchmarking and reporting are they doing, how do they know that a company's on the right track, how are they looking around corners to make sure there's no risks coming or opportunities that are not being captured, and that a company's long-term best interest of being safeguarded. Those things absolutely are going to require directors to be on the ball, absolutely. And so they're going to, I hope that, they can always hire Just Capital to come in and give them guidance. I'm happy to do that. Use our data, use our tools. We got a lot of information on best practice. And in the next few months, we'll have a lot of information on what company stakeholders expect company leaders to be doing. But those are the things that have to be discussed at every board meeting right now. And I think they are, quite honestly, Carol. Like, as you know, a lot of Just Capital's board members sit on big company boards.
But they do.
And those are the conversations that are happening right now.
And are they staying at that level, or are they creating also a subgroup, like the CSR would be a subgroup usually that would report to the board? Or is it staying right at the board level?
I think right now it's every company for themselves. I think we see a lot of different approaches.
Yeah.
Most companies, if you look at the disclosure work we did, 80%, and that number's rising, by the way. We're tracking sort of disclosure levels in different ways. That the reported disclosure about the use and adoption of AI within a company's operations and activities, who's using it, the level of use, all of those things are going up. And so I think we're seeing different approaches, different companies, but it all funnels up to the board ultimately.
Yeah.
And the board will really need, and by the way, board members themselves need to be using AI. They should know the difference between when to use, I don't know, Perplexity Pro or GPT-5 or Claude or anything else, or Grok or whatever. So they should be in the weeds on this.
Are they?
We'll find out that in our survey work.
Okay.
It's also going to spill over into compensation. So I think you'll begin to see executive compensation tied to AI-related performance criteria in the year ahead. So we'll see signs like that where it begins to become, if you remember when ESG criteria begin to affect executive performance, we'll see the same thing here.
That's what I thought. That would be great. I am curious about companies that are the laggards. They're still large, but they're laggards in terms of going on their AI journey. Maybe they're working with a consulting firm, but it's very, as the FICO report said, it's very separate. It's not connected. What advice do you have for companies who are beginning to get really serious about this, but they really haven't gone far yet?
Start at the top down, conduct, full top-down review of who are we, what are we doing, what's the future look like in our industry, what does it look like for us, and how does AI get embedded and integrated into that? Where does that accelerate? Where does it create risk? Where does it create opportunity? And how do we as a company and in terms of our operations need to adapt? So that's point one. Point two would be you got to establish the strong governance processes that you described earlier. Comes back to your values. How do we think about AI being used at our company, and that is in sync with the kind of company we are and the kind of company we want to be, the way we show up in the world. And then operationally, how do I drive that down to everybody at the firm? So that's in a larger scale, it would be doing what we did at Just Capital, forming a group. You'll have some super users there. You'll have people like me and other folks who are like still getting their losing the training wheels on it. And people have to be, by the way, not embarrassed to say, I'm not really using AI as much as I need to. Help me. What do I need to do? People got to be willing to put their hand up and say, help me be better in my job. How do I do that? So that speaks to your culture. As a company, you got to have a culture that will allow for that. So that's where I would go. Top down, full 360 governance procedures. So you got the norms, you got the framing, and then it's all about execution.
It is. When are we going to see your Just Capital chatbot? When do you think?
Q1 next year.
That's great. Oh, that's exciting. Oh, that's really, really good. What about young people today? So they're in school. Maybe they're studying engineering, but maybe, a lot of those young engineers aren't getting jobs because AI is taking that entry-level job. And I'm sure you get asked a lot about a career. They want to be in just business, but what's the career track they should take?
Look, I have 4 kids in their 20s who are working or various stages of entering the workforce. And they do very different things, and AI is relevant to each of them in a different way. I think whoever you are, whatever you do, you got to have your AI capability on your resume. You've got to know how it can make you better. The thing you're doing, your chosen line of work, your passion. So look for that. I think this is sort of whenever I'm mentoring folks, I always talk about a commitment to lifelong learning. This
is a real moment for that.
It's a perfect opportunity for that. And you will, a lot of jobs, well, it's hard to say. I read the same reports you do. Like some jobs will probably go away. They always do when there's technological change. The difference with this is it's widespread and it's very, very fast. So the disruption is probably greater. But you gotta be ahead of that. You gotta be preparing yourself and your own capabilities, your own skill sets. You gotta be anticipating what could be happening in this area, and just equip yourself to try and be ahead of the curve, or at least try and be one step ahead of your competition.
Yeah. It's a very interesting a new world for sure. I always love our conversations. I learn so much. You're always doing. This is a very exciting time for Just Capital. I've met you early on and seen the way you've shaped what just businesses look like, and you've had a big impact on climate and the environment and social impact and employee engagement, and how companies' value can truly be expressed across all stakeholders. What haven't I asked? What haven't we discussed? At least on this one, because you're coming back, I bet, in about 3 months, because we're going to want to do that one with your chatbot. That'll be great.
I think what's different about this, Carol, than all the other things you mentioned and anything I've seen, is it sort of strikes to the very beating heart of what it means to be a human company.
Yes.
What does it mean? Like, are you and I going to be obsolete in a decade, and we'll have Carol Cohn AI, Martin Whittaker AI, and we'll be off doing something else?
Funny.
So it's existential, and that is what is different here. And so I think you ask yourselves a deeper set of questions. And I like that. I like that it requires reflection. And I think if you get comfortable with that reflection, you start to get a little more optimistic. It's easy to be beaten up by a sense that this is sort of overwhelming thing, and we're on a worrying path. I think the more familiar one can become, and the more the more fundamental questions you're willing to ask of yourself. Certainly, I've asked a lot of myself
Right.
around this. What kind of a leader am I? Am I really going to step up? And how do I
It's a key
empower
point.
my team? Like
Yeah, that's
those
key
are
point. Key
basic
point.
questions.
Absolutely, you can't coast now. You've got to really
So,
lean in. I wanted to ask this question, which is that can AI replace the humanity in business? I mean, can AI have the empathy and the humanity that we as human beings bring into our lives, into our business relationships? Can it replace it?
my sense of that, it depends on who you ask. I listened to a lot of content and podcasts, and people looking out over a generation, and people
Mm.
looking forward at 6 months. So I think you could say it's possible, but one likes to think that like any technology, we can use it for good or for ill, and we can use it to improve the human condition, make us more conscious and more aware and more
Yeah.
human,
Mhm.
um, or not. And so I don't know. Maybe the jury's out is the best way to say that.
The jury's out. Well, on that perplexing answer, question, point, I
I mean,
think that
humanity can be very good and very
be
bad right
bad, and
now
we're seeing it,
without
right,
AI. It doesn't
right,
need AI to be
to be
just
bad,
right.
to really be really bad. But the
Yeah.
question is, will it have the empathy so that if a young person is really having second thoughts, that it's going to help them, which
Well,
is,
I know why you're asking that. We've seen
yeah,
that in the news. Here's a question that flows from that, which
sure.
is, if a large language model results in human harm, who is liable?
Yeah. And that's gonna go to the courts.
Right,
It's happening now.
right. So you might get a legal answer to your question,
Right.
but I don't know if you'll get a moral one.
True. So I want to thank you for this discussion. There's a lot more we're going to have. The role that this is a great time for Just Capital. I mean, that kind
It
of like,
is.
it really is. Because I know we've talked a lot about how are you evolving and the positioning and et cetera in a world that is incredibly noisy. And this is
Can I
a,
just say, Carol, just on that point,
yes.
if anyone watches this or
Hmm.
listens to this and wants to partner with us, support us, get involved, just reach out to us. You know, we're we're trying to do this through partnerships. We're open
Yeah.
for business on this subject. This is so important. So if you want to donate to us, we're a nonprofit. If you want to help
That's
us, you
right.
want to support us, get involved, use our data. If you're running a company and you want to use our Just Intelligence platform, like, reach out.
Great, great. No, I'm really glad. That's a great end note for this for at this point in this conversation. As always, Martin, it's a great to have you on the show. We will have you back probably early next year, and with your chatbot, and that'll be a lot of fun. And we'll see if we can like trick it. I
Right.
mean, whenever I use AI, let me ask one other question. Do you have? Do you use it personally? I'm not going to go really deep, but
Yeah. Yeah. Of
you have
course.
a really kind of cool way you've used it that you feel okay to let people know about?
I mean, it's I don't know if it's cool. I mean, we're using it. I'm using it right now for outreach to major donors. And here's one very interesting way we use it. We have our base kind of like, here's Just Capital deck,
Mhm.
but we're using AI to sort of customize the language, customize the delivery of that for every individual recipient, which would have been a huge pain in the what to do
Right,
before. Now we can do it in a matter of moments. So, you'll get something that hopefully will resonate with your brain,
right.
and the next person might get something that will resonate with their brain. So it's a very interesting use of AI for us, in just in a very practical manner.
So it's not a recipe for the best barbecue. Yeah.
What does a 57-year-old man do to kind of try and stay in shape? That's
That's a good
how
one.
I personally. Yeah.
Well, you're doing a good job, so you must be getting great answers.
Everything hurts. Everything hurts all the time. I just don't show it.
Okay. Well, ask AI. I don't know.
Yeah.
You might get better answer. Eat well, eat clean.
You got it.
Super. Okay. Well, thanks for coming back on the show, Martin. And we're going to have you back again soon.
Look forward to
Stay
it.
well
Great to
and
come.
really help define what just AI, not just define, but the practice of. And I love the fact that you talk so much about values, that companies need to use their values, their purpose and their values and their behaviors to help guide them through these very interesting and challenging times. So thank you.
It's what makes us human. Thank you.